After many months of enduring a pandemic, many of the impacts are quite visible. The lines waiting for food, for example, the lines to get tested for COVID, the warnings about crowds and social distancing. But there's much more than what we see on the surface. Dr. Keonta Moore is a fellow in child health policy at the Baker Institute for Public Policy at Rice University. Her research has recently focused on the impact of COVID on vulnerable families, meaning low income and children. Welcome, Dr. Moore. Your writings have covered a number of scenarios presenting themselves during this pandemic. What are some of the more serious issues that you found, and why are they specific to low-income women and children?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's really important, I think, that we think about what's happened since March. So our federal government passed the CARES Act and a family bill that was intended to prevent low-income workers, primarily because they're the ones that don't usually have sick time. So other research has shown that about 92% of higher wage earners have sick time. And so in a time of a public health crisis like a pandemic, having sick time is critical. But for lower wage workers, only about 30% of them have sick time. And so a bill was passed and went into effect early April that would allow all employees to be able to access sick care. The problem was, and the gap that the federal bill left, was that it excluded companies that have 500 or more employees. And so essentially it excluded all of the markets that right now are what we call essential, like our grocery stores, our large retailers. You know, those companies don't have to now pay sick care. And so for low-income women with children, obviously they have children at home, or they're struggling trying to find childcare or a place for their children now that they can no longer take them to the neighbor or their grandparents' homes. And so we're now faced with people having to make a decision between, do I go to work feeling sick or do I take a pay cut because I don't have access to sick time?
Well, all of those things are going on, and they have to make those decisions. But we talk about the fact that the child is ultimately going to be impacted negatively as a result of some of this. Why so? Is it just because of the stress that a parent feels, or a combination of stress and or lack of finances in the home?
It's a combination of both. So our research has demonstrated that, and actually research from multiple disciplines has demonstrated that the first couple of years of life, the brain is most susceptible to injury, most susceptible not just to physical injury, but also emotional, psychologically. Even the way that the neurons form and shape is actually shaped by how the parent and child interact with one another. And so during this time when parents are really stressed, where they're having to make these difficult choices for essential workers, which again are primarily low-wage workers, they're having to make choices between putting food on the table, going to work sick, potentially contracting a life-threatening disease. And so all of that increases parental stress. And when parents are stressed, they don't interact with their children in a way that optimizes those kids' brain development. And so research in Canada demonstrated in a similar situation where parents were stuck at home for 40 days, they didn't have power, that this stress actually impacted the brain development of these children. And by the time they entered kindergarten, they had lower language performance and lower cognitive measures. And so I'm terribly concerned that without addressing this issue, that we're going to see the impact of this on the next generation 5-10 years from now.
And it does take that long sometimes to show, does it not, that the kids have been on the slow end of development as a result of things that are no fault of their own?
Exactly right. Right now, vaccinations are going down. Children are not getting their well checks. And so even the screening process that usually, honestly was not very good unless there were severe developmental delays or severe learning or language problems. But even that system right now is not functioning the way it should because parents are not taking their kid to the pediatrician out of fear of contracting COVID. And so now, schools are not in session. There's really no screening mechanism. And so that means that for, kids are not going to, we're not going to know the impact of this until kids, enter kindergarten.
So,
or in middle school.
and I know you've done more. Your research has done a number of articles. Your website is just great with all the information that your research has been doing. What's the purpose of all this? Do you hope legislators read them and take action as a result of the information you're providing? Because it's nonpartisan. You're not taking one stance or another politically. So what do you hope what the people would do with the research you're showing?
Absolutely. We want policymakers. Rice University has a firm that we use to get our policy briefs into the hand of legislators, but also it's for the public to reach out to your legislator. Let them know, like a great example is the fact that our child care centers are closing at a rapid rate. And so even as the economy opens, parents may not have access to child care because those child care centers have been closed. And so now is the time to be calling your policymakers, to be calling your legislators to say, hey, this is a problem. Same with the gap in not having access to sick time for essential workers. I mean, that's a major problem, and it not just affects them, but it affects all of us as we're trying to control and really put a lid on this disease.
Well, I'm gonna make sure that I put a link to all of your work because it's fascinating. I told you yesterday when we talked, I read it and it's wonderful, and I feel so much smarter after I read it. So that's a good thing. I'm gonna put that link on my website as well, so everybody can have a shot at that. Thank you for coming in this morning. Hopefully, a lot of people will read it and be better educated about what we can do for our children going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.